Welcome back to another episode of the Juan podcast. This is the maiden voyage of the new setup. So hopefully it sounds crispy in your ears. And today I am joined by, what do you want me to call you? You want me to call you by your name, or you want me to call you? Because usually I have people...
Shithead, asshole, I don't care. Whatever, my name.
So Jeffrey Davis from the Functionally Dysfunctional Show.
What's up, man?
What's going on, brother? We've been talking for a little bit, and we linked up on... I was listening to the... What was the one that you did with the... She's not a psychologist. She's something...
Psychotherapist.
Psychotherapist. And...
That was like my first question to her was, what is the difference between a psychotherapist and a psychologist?
Yeah, and I listened to that one, and I saw you were going down some stuff, and I was like, man, let me link up with this guy. So before we get started, share your socials, Instagram, YouTube, whatever it is you have, so people can find your work, and I'll put that in the description.
We're doing it on the front end. I like it.
Yeah, I do it on the front end because people wait till the end when the two people that are listening to the show, like probably your mom and your wife or something, are listening to the show, and then they just tune out, so they don't hear it. So just do it up front.
That's why we do it at the end, right? Make them hang on, right? No, man, you can catch me everywhere at Hey Jeffrey Davis personally. That's Twitch, Twitter, Facebook, all that shit. And then my podcast, the Functionally Dysfunctional Show, you can catch on Twitter at Funk Dysfunct Show, Instagram at Functionally Dysfunctional Show, or email functionallyDysfunctionalShow@gmail.com.
Nice. And the reason I like that name is because it's like the Juan podcast. It's the Juan.
Yeah.
And I can say that shit because I'm brown. So it's not racist if I say it. But it'd be pretty fucking racist if somebody else said that. So.
Oh, see, that's a great conversation right there by itself. Would it be? Would it be racist?
I can't pull my black card, even though Puerto Ricans do have some black in them, somewhere in the mix in there. But I can't quite pull the full on black. I'm brown as fuck. So, so dude, what got you into podcasting? Was it the old Joe Rogan or what?
Oh no, man. Dude, that's a long story. I did it because I felt like we
got time,
right? Shit. Man, I don't tell a short story. That's the problem, right? I have to I'm always catching myself and reining myself in where I'm going, oh my God, I'm getting too long-winded, but long story, like multiple episode long story.
Damn, son.
Once upon a time, I'm 38 now. I was a professional minister and evangelist, and
really,
oh yeah, dude, traveled the country speaking. And my beliefs are nowhere in the neighborhood of that realm now. And
dude, I would have never thought that.
Oh, no one does, right? But people that hear me talk now that knew me back then are like, "What the fuck happened to you?" I'm like,
Satan.
That's another conversation. Well, that's what they think, right? And for those that actually want to have a reasonable conversation about it, then we have a good time. But most people just want to make their own assumptions and move on. But yeah, so I have a lot of experience speaking, and I'm the kind of person, I think about shit, and I ask a lot of questions, and I see a lot of things unanswered, and I'm driven by the big questions of who we are, why are we here, where do we come from, how did we get here, what's the point? And I just ask the shit that everyone else asks in their head if they're honest with themselves, but no one talks about. And I was like, man, no one talks about this shit. And I want to talk about this shit. And I want to do it where other folks can be a part of it if they want to be, whether that be listening or anything. So we talk about real shit. Sometimes we talk about, on my podcast, we talk about movies and TV shows and shit like that. But more times than not, we're talking about real shit. And why not, right? I mean, we have chit chat all day, every day. Why not talk about real shit?
It's like that one saying, did a conversation really happen if it wasn't on a podcast? What do they say? Did the tree really fall in the woods if there was nobody around to hear it?
Right.
Did the bear shit in the woods if there was nobody else around to hear it?
When I was in college, I had this roommate that was not the sharpest knife in the drawer, and he me and another roommate were talking about, you mentioned sound, it's just waves, sound waves, just waves that hit your ears. And similarly, we were talking to him and we were like, now, color doesn't exist until you see it. It's just wavelengths of light.
Yeah.
And until, the rods and cones in your eyeballs, and they interpret those spectrums of light as certain colors, like the fuck ton of colors behind me, which is just the way I roll. But long story short, we had that motherfucker trying to catch the lack of color behind him. We're like, if you look behind you fast enough, you can catch. And that motherfucker's like, what? He's like trying. I'm like, yeah, like I said, not the sharpest knife in the drawer, but
So I've had Lawrence Caruana on the show, and back you talk about vision being, something. Back then, vision was thought of as something. I'm trying to look through the emails now.
Do it.
So right here, visionary seeing. So Lawrence Caruana is a visionary artist, and what they do is they focus on visions and they paint what they see in this realm. And he's written a bunch of books, and he does alchemy, and I had him on my show to talk about Gnosticism, and we conversed through email about this visionary seeing. First, that seeing, particularly vision seeing, is active rather than passive. That seeing was always understood as the active projection of sight from early Greek culture. And then he's got Empedocles, some fucking Greek guy, Plato, optics until the Middle Ages. Only during the Renaissance and scientific revolution, Leonardo and Newton, did we come to regard seeing as the passive reception of light. In visionary states, we try to open our eye to the divine eye, and it's the more active way of creative seeing. So back then, we understood seeing as an active projection of sight versus it's always there, and then we interpret whatever comes in, which is really interesting. And we only see 0.0025 of the light spectrum.
Oh, so, really? Is it that low?
It's that low, and we only hear a certain amount of the frequency. That's why I tell people we don't see infrared, we don't see ultraviolet light, we don't see all these different types of wavelengths and lights. So who's to say that there's not like a world going on in front of us right now that we can't see?
Oh man, I agree totally.
But dude, so I can't just skip over the fact that you were like this minister and shit, because this changes the entire dynamic of the podcast, bro. I gotta dig deeper into that. What clicked, bro? Like, what happened that you were just like, fuck this is not it? Because usually when it's like that, you're deep in the shit, like deeply. I grew up Pentecostal Christian.
No shit.
So
I spent some time in the Pentecostal church.
It's deep shit, you know what I mean? Like I played guitar for 5 years. I was in the worship group. I did it all until I started realizing, like, hey, this is bullshit. You know what I mean? I opened up my eyes, and when I really started seeing and reading other literature and other scriptures, that's when I was like, okay, I've been bamboozled, you know?
Okay, so the thing about it, so I wouldn't go so far as to say that it's bullshit, right? So let me back up. I guess I would ask someone that makes that statement the question, well, what about it do you think is bullshit? Because that could be far reaching. Yeah. So for me, as I grew up in the church, wasn't necessarily that super active till my teenage years. I had some people that took an interest in me in the ministry. They invested in me, groomed me for professional ministry. I traveled the country preaching, ended up starting a church, so on and so forth. And pardon me. Yeah. And yes, Satan. Whoa. But in all of that, and one of my things is I'm big on history. I'm big on origin stories. I don't want to just read an English translation of Hebrew, Greek, and Aramaic. And I'm like, okay, well, I've always been, back to your original question about why I started my podcast, is I've always been that person that asks those questions, that everyone seems to stop just short of for some reason. And I go, okay, well, how did the Bible end up the way the Bible is? Why do we only include the writings of these people? Well, what's the other stories that were circulating at the time? And so on and so on and so on. And when you start reading things like that, you start to go, huh, you start to notice there's a lot of interesting, um,
Motherfuckers.
and motherfuckers, yeah, and that are telling different versions of the same stories,
Yeah.
which makes you ask questions about the infallibility of Scripture, and it makes you ask all these questions. And in the church, I grew up in the Southern Baptist Church. I was in very strict Baptist churches and some progressive Baptist churches. I was in the Pentecostal church for a bit. Spent some time in the Charismatic church. I've got around a bit, right? Lots of friends that were in Wesleyan traditions and so on and so forth. So not in just down one pigeonhole, right? And through all those asking of questions, it's kind of like pulling at the loose thread on a sweater, right? If you pull on it, I completely promise it will unravel for you, unless. And this is what many. I'm going to pull back the curtain on professional ministry a little bit, because this is true across the board. Most professional ministers have come to that point where they went, oh fuck, when they pulled on that thread enough to where they realized if they kept pulling, it was all going to unravel. And the vast majority of them were made the decision with the faced with the same quandary that I was, to go, now what? Do I keep pulling, or do I just stop and pretend like it never happened, and this is my livelihood at this point, and I'm not gonna pull anymore? And most of them make that choice, and I almost did. I almost went, you know what? I've invested so much in this, I cannot. But I'm the kind of person that I can't do that. I can't stop when I'm on an interesting journey, right? I can't
Yeah.
pretend like I haven't just been where I've been, and I'm not going down the road I'm going down. And so for me, I just, for better or worse, went, I got to see where this leads. And what it led to for me was the unraveling of Christianity specifically to begin with, and then organized religion as a whole after that. And I went through a, thankfully, very brief time where, for about a year, where I was as fervent in trying to convince people that Christianity was bullshit as I had been in trying to convince them of the existence of a deity or God. And thankfully I realized, well, that was about as much folly as the other side, right? As the religious side. So I settled in this place where I went, you know what? There's no evidence to prove or disprove the existence or non-existence of a god or gods. So for me, I'm not going to throw my lot in with, some kind of faith in some kind of deity until that deity is proven to exist. And if that deity, or to prove that we are totally alone, there is no higher power, and I'm completely open. So that freed me up to go, you know what? Let me just consider all perspectives, all possibilities of what could be. And whatever ends up being proven to actually be is fine with me. I just want to know empirically what is, if there is anything greater than us, higher than us, and I don't give a shit if it's the Judeo-Christian notion of God. I don't give a shit if it's, the Hindu pantheon, the Greek pantheon. Something that we don't have any frame of reference for at all. I don't care what it is, as long as it's empirically proven that it does exist. if anything does exist. But until then, because that's all religion is, right? The religion only exists because, in my opinion, because of unanswerable questions. Okay, in ancient history, as far as we know, we can talk about possible past advanced civilizations on planet Earth and so on and so forth. I can go all day about that. I know you can too.
Yeah.
But you look at it and go, if you buy the line that we're fed of what history is, and it may or may not be the truth, no evidence either way, in my opinion. But if you buy the line that we were super primitive in antiquity, well, okay, let's buy the line that people were just stupid motherfuckers in antiquity, and we go, okay, well, Joe Farmer goes, man, my crops haven't fucking grown. Well, it hasn't rained in a while. Well, I wonder why not. Well, maybe I fucking pissed off that thing in the sky, right? And for some reason, every culture on every corner of the globe in ancient history came to the realization or the assumption that that thing requires blood sacrifice. How'd that happen? But right? So you have all these unanswerable questions and these quandaries that people go, I don't know, maybe it was this. And boom, there's faith. There's religion. And we sacrifice John down the road because John's a bad motherfucker and he needs to die, so we're going to just sacrifice him. And we go, oh, coincidentally, it rained. Well, what happens? Oh, shit, if it hasn't rained for a while, let's kill someone and then it'll rain, right?
It's confirmation bias.
Exactly. And oh man, we can talk about confirmation bias and cognitive dissonance all day too. So anyway, that was like the I told you don't tell a short story. That's the long ass version of explaining how religion and we're talking like a multi-year process of how that happened. It wasn't like I woke up one day and went, fuck this shit, right? It was like a multi-year. It was a terrible time. It was a time of great existential angst for me to go, because here I've invested my life in this belief system and this profession around this belief system and this dogma, and now it's just I keep pulling at the thread and it just keeps falling apart for me, and it's terrible. It's a terrible feeling because everything about your life at that point, you might relate to that depending on how deep into it you got. You go, well, it shapes your worldview. It shapes it's the lens through which you view things, and when that's gone, that's a horrible feeling. Until it becomes a great feeling where you go, wait a second. If I don't hold anything as sacred, that means everything is possible. And for me, that's a very freeing thought once I got to that place, right? For a lot of people, it's paralyzing. And it was for me for a while. That's what existential angst is. But once you get beyond that, if you allow yourself to move beyond that and press through that and stay within your stay self-aware and continue processing and don't just give in to the paralyzing overwhelmingness of it, then it becomes very freeing, for me at least, and potentially for other people. Just depends on the person.
Yeah, that's a lot to unpack.
Right?
So
I'll see you next time.
That's heavy, man. So I can relate because even with so I've done probably collectively with all the podcasts I've done, probably over 100 episodes, right?
Nice.
So once that indoctrination sets in, right? And I can't even imagine, I can relate a little bit because I was in that realm of things as far as the church goes, but I can't imagine putting my livelihood on that and then going down this rabbit hole and being like, wow, this might be bullshit. And then lying to yourself to hold back, right? Because I can't even, now that you're saying that, I can't imagine how many ministers or preachers are going through the same, almost like an existential crisis.
Almost all
where
of them.
That's crazy, dude.
Yeah.
That is crazy because at the end of the day, it's all a narrative fallacy. At the end of the day, it is what it is. Now, there is no proving or disproving this God figure, whoever it is. At the end of the day, I feel it's an internal battle. And I've been looking more and more into the aspect of what these philosophers call the demons, right? Where they do the mass and by demons I mean the things that they use, thoughts, right? How Plato thought that the thought world was another dimension, Plato's theory of forms, where we have the perfect image of a horse, but in the real world, there's fucked up versions of horses, right?
Yeah, the form of the good versus the form of the chair. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
you're the Republic. I love it.
Yeah,
if anyone hasn't read the
exactly,
Republic, man,
exactly.
fucking pick it up.
So when it comes to these thoughts, because I forgot if it was either Alan Watts or I forgot who it was like an action doesn't happen without a thought. And the actions that are happening in the future happen because of things that happened in the past. So, and excuse me, I've been listening to a lot of Terrence McKenna talk about time travel and time itself and how time is an illusion. And obviously there's only the eternal now. There is no future. There is no past. There's only now. But the way they talk about it is like everything is being pushed to one moment in time all together. Like this collective just clusterfuck of just time and moments just happening, which is what like the multiverse theory is and all this stuff, that everything has happened all at once, right? Like string theory, everything's connected.
And we only, in time is just the way we experience it or perceive
things.
Yeah.
Scaliger, Joseph Scaliger was the guy who invented the AD-BC system. That's the guy that invented that. He was a Jesuit monk. That's what he was. And look this up. Joseph Scaliger. And time as people, that's just something that we measure. It's just another unit of measurement. But back to the topic of proving and disproving that there is a God or not. I don't believe that there is. I consider myself a Gnostic theist. I believe there is some higher power. There is, I refer to him as the programmer, like in the Matrix, the programmer, right? The architect that's in the room and is creating reality. And the reason I feel we live in some sort of simulation is because law of attraction and what you said about how, trying to see if the colors have changed, the observer effect is 100% real. And people don't know about that. The double slit experiment, if you can figure out why atoms react differently when you're observing them versus when you're not, you will win a Nobel Peace Prize.
When you mentioned that, I was fixing to bring up the photon split experiment. So
that's
unbelievable.
Dude, that's fucking crazy, bro.
So for everyone listening, we have not prepped this episode at all. We just happen to be speaking the same fucking language, right? Like you're referencing shit that I'm aware of. I'm referencing shit you're aware of. It's like serendipitous that we're having this conversation.
What got me into podcasting, other than obviously Joe Rogan, was that when I started looking into things, when I started reading scriptures in the Nag Hammadi library, when I started reading the Dead Sea Scrolls, when I started looking into it, and then when I questioned and I asked somebody who was in the church, I said, hey, what's up with the Old Testament, man? What's up with why do the Bogomils and the Cathars think it's a work of a demon? Who's Yahweh? What's going on, man? What's up? They said, ignore the Old Testament. What? Yeah, ignore it. We don't regard that. I said, wait a minute, but it's no. Ignore it. So that's what really, when they told me, I said, oh, I see what's going on here. I see what's going on. So the narrative is when it fits, right? When it fits, it's okay. When you're reading the scripture, you know how many people go to church and don't understand that the scripture that they're reading?
99.999% of them.
Because what happens? You as a preacher, you go in and you see it when they're reading. Oh, Revelations, da da da. This is what happened, right? Everybody's, that's what happened. Hallelujah. You know what I mean? It's like this indoctrination, and just with what's happening right now, it's a business model.
Yes,
it's a brokered experience. Who are you? And I'm not saying you to tell me that I'm able to achieve divinity or not. Oh, well, this guy talks to God every other day. This other guy talks to him every day. This other guy. It's a brokered experience, and you're ruled a heretic when you go against the grain, when you question the narrative.
Yeah, because we have to have a hierarchy, right? Or there's not going to be, rather, should I say, the fear is that there will not be any order without a hierarchy, right? Like the people
That's
in
why the Ten
power.
Commandments were given to Moses. He needed to lead the people. He
Yes.
needed some order. He needed that, right?
Because
So
the assumption is that there will be no order without a hierarchy, and that's a massive assumption. Then again,
that is.
then again,
But people are too stupid to
Yeah.
live in some society where there is no hierarchy. That's the problem, because that's why they haven't told us that there's aliens. Because can you imagine the mass hysteria that would happen if dude, could you imagine the breakdown of society
Yep.
if they told them God wasn't real, or hey, listen, we're a brain in a vat jar.
Yep.
That's why Rene Descartes said, I think, therefore I am. That's the only thing he was fucking sure of. You know, like when Neo asked Morpheus, what is real? He goes, what is real?
Right.
Is it, the electrical impulses that you're, you know what I mean?
How do you define real?
How do you
real
define?
what you can taste and
I fucking
and
love that movie so much, dude.
I just learned, speaking of Matrix, like last week, that there's a third one, Matrix
Fourth.
Resurrections. That's right.
Yeah.
It's the fourth one. The fourth.
Yeah.
I'm like, when the fuck did that happen?
So you're still wrong. There's 4. The number 4 is coming out now.
Resurrections.
Yes, which is gonna be pretty much Neo was, because at the end of the last one, the third one, which the best one was the first one, obviously, right? Whenever there's just as you're a Star Wars fan, right?
Oh fuck yeah.
So whenever there's
what
a
do I
third, when there's the first movie is always like the greatest. I don't know about Star Wars a little bit. We can get into that, but Matrix is the first one was great. The second one was okay. It's like Aliens. Alien was the amazing.
Yeah.
Great. And then obviously they went off that, but the Matrix, on the third movie, it's very Gnostic too, the feel of it, right? And every character has, if you Google their name, they have, Trinity, right? The Holy Trinity, Morpheus, the god of is it sleep, right? Morpheus, the Nebuchadnezzar, the ship, right? All this shit, Neo, the one,
right?
And at the end of the third movie, spoiler alert, he pretty much dies. And then in this movie, I was wondering how they were gonna bring it back, like, hey, how are we going to do this? Everybody's dead. And it's like, oh, I was having a dream. I've had these crazy dreams. And it's like, fucking boom, dude.
So there's this theory in a very small subsect of, Christendom, of Christianity. And it's called, it's people. I don't know that the sect or has any kind of name, but
the
there's
Temple of Inner Light.
Right. What is that from? Do what?
Is it the Temple of Inner Light?
Oh, I don't know. If there is a name, I'm not aware of it. But
Yeah,
there's a theory, a theology, or whatever concept of this thing called the Edemic dream, and it's the theory that obviously Adam and Eve are not a physical man and woman, that they're a metaphor for humanity. Because so here's your Hebrew lesson of the day, right? And because that was one of my things, is I read he didn't speak but read Hebrew and Greek, and because I'm like, I want to read the original language that the text was in, not what has been translated into.
Guess who came up with the King James version? Take a wild guess.
I used to know it, but I've forgotten. Go ahead.
Fucking King James, dude.
Well, yeah. There was
that's the thing, bro. Like, who the Council of Nicaea with the whole canonical versus not canonical.
Oh,
There's
I know.
The Ethiopian Bible has the book of Enoch as a canonical book,
right?
Not the Western. The Western we don't. Enoch.
You ever read the Book of Enoch?
Satan.
Book of Enoch is fucking.
It's fucking wild, bro.
Wild. That's a great word for it. Wild.
I've had Joseph. There's 3 books. I've had Joseph Lumpkin, Dr. Joseph Lumpkin, on my podcast, and he has a PhD in church history and all this other crazy shit. And he's written numerous books on it, and it's fucking crazy. But
if
anyways,
you're listening and you're a Christian, don't start down the church history rabbit hole, because you will not be one for long.
Oh, I've had some emails. I've had some emails come my way.
Oh, I bet. And so here's your Hebrew lesson of the day, right? In Genesis, when Adam is talked about, he's called Ha-Adam. He's called the humanity, basically, right? And then once Eve is created, Adam is no longer. In English, the translation is still Adam, but in the Hebrew, it's Ish, right? And so Ish is a male incomplete entity, right? And Eve is Isha, and it's a female incomplete entity. It's only once Ish and Isha come together, right, where they become collectively referred to as Ha Adam again, and
What the
as the
fuck?
humanity, the human.
So
So
like the Trinity.
to a degree, yeah. And so, showing that you anyway, well, it says it potentially shows a lot of things. Anyway, you go on, and the theory that I was talking about was the Edemic dream. Is there's this theory that when Adam and Eve fell, when they ate of the apple of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, which is massively misunderstood, but that's a different podcast. When they did that, that they fell asleep, and humanity has been sleeping, not unlike all of the humans in the power plants in the Matrix, right? That they're asleep, and you're like, yeah, bullshit. Well, find me a book in the Bible for all whatever that's worth. We talk about the canonization process of the Old and New Testament and so on and so forth, and the different sects of Christianity that use different canons and blah blah blah. But so let's just simplify it and say, find me a writing, a book in any canon of the Bible that doesn't have a common narrative of wake up. It is said in every single book, with potentially the exclusion, I'm not for certain, of Leviticus. We're just running through all the laws. But wake up is said by every prophet, by every apostle,
Whoa.
by every
And the
judge.
really?
Yes, wake up, wake up, wake up. Jesus, wake up. And so, I'm not saying I buy it. I'm saying it's an interesting perspective and thought and conversation to have.
What's the story? I'm sure you know, where he is wrestling with the angel, and he's telling him I have to go before the sun comes out. What's the
So that's the story of Jacob.
right, Jacob?
And
He's wrestling like an angel, right? And I had somebody on the podcast. We were talking about that, about how it was almost, I forgot what the fuck he said. This is forever ago, but it was pretty much he was it was like a shadow type of, like a Carl Jung type of thing, where he's just battling with his shadow type of
I
shit.
can't recall how the person is described. I will say, and dude, I'm 38. I haven't been a preacher since I was in my early 20s. I'm digging way fucking back, but this shit stays in my consciousness because I'm always looking. I'm always on the journey for what is, whatever that might be. I want to know what is, and
Yeah.
so this shit stays in my consciousness, and well, that's one of my favorite stories, and it was back when I was preaching towards the end of my preaching career, for lack of a better term, and that really is the most appropriate term. That was one of my favorite stories that I would use because there's a tense that is lost
Wait, which
in
story? The Jacob
the
story?
Jacob story,
What the fuck are the chances that I bring that up and that was your favorite story?
right? One of them, and because one of the things, there's this tense in Hebrew called the future perfect tense. And I can't recall if we have one of those in English, and I don't believe we have a future perfect in English. Anyway, we read the story as so. Jacob wrestles. So it's assumed, per the writing, that this person that Jacob wrestled with was God. Okay,
Yeah.
and Jacob wrestled with God all night long, and
It's kind
that
of
God
fucking weird,
invited
man.
the wrestling. And one way you can read that is, let me back up a step. So Jacob wrestles with God, and obviously God could best him. God could best him anytime he wanted to, but chose not to because Jacob was still engaging in the wrestling. So he kept him in the fight, basically, right? And they wrestle all night long. All night long, the text says. And in the end, at the end of the fight, as the sun's coming up, the stranger, as the person's called, the stranger, depending on what translation you're reading, touches, wrenches, injures, whatever, does something to Jacob's hip. Well, that's so we kind of read on right past that. In the Hebrew, that sentence is, what was done to Jacob's hip was done in the future perfect tense in Hebrew, which means it changed the way that Jacob would walk forever.
What the
future perfect. It's never going to be undone. So what I took that as, and this, of course, here comes the preacher or anyone reading any sacred text that is completely open to interpretation. You can kind of read it how you want. What that meant to me at the time, and what I think is the interesting way to look at it, was if you wrestle with God, and I interpret that as asking the hard questions, digging deep, figure it out, ask the tough shit, right? If you wrestle with God, you better fucking be prepared, because it will change you forever if you go down that road.
Whoa.
If you engage in that fight, you will not walk the same forever, and you may or may not like the way you don't walk the same. And in my case, it led to religion unraveling for me, and that's just the way it is. And I don't not like that happened. In a lot of ways, I feel like it was a emancipation almost. But
dude, that's
so don't
fucking
tell
deep,
me I don't
bro.
know about slavery because I'm white. Just kidding.
That's fucking deep, dude. You know, what the guy talked about was, because he was in a cave or something before, he was meditating or something before that, and that's
I don't
when.
recall.
Well, anyways, the reason I had brought that up was because there's these monks that go underground for weeks at a time, days at a time, and the reason that they do that is they go underground to meditate, because they say that DMT. Wait for it.
Dimethyltryptamine.
What's up? They say that
DMT.
They say that DMT is produced the most in the lungs, right?
No shit.
And Wim Hof, which is this crazy freak of nature guy, he says get high on your own supply, and the way he does that is through breathing exercises. And he says that I've had a friend of mine who's done it before, where he's like had hallucinations from just, I don't know if it's the lack of oxygen or what it is, but he's had these from doing these breathing exercises. So these monks go underground in the darkness, right? Because they say that you're able to produce more DMT in the darkness for whatever fucking reason. And they do these breathing exercises in the darkness to induce these visionary states where they, again, have fights with entities that they perceive. That's why the entity kept telling him, hey, I have to go before the sun comes up. I have to go before the sun comes up. Oh, but Stace, I have to go, because once the sun came up, maybe he'd snap out of that visionary state.
Interesting.
You know what I mean? Like maybe it was the shadow. I don't know. It's this crazy thing that I've always thought about, but that's wild to me, bro. Where it makes perfect sense what you're saying. Where you what do they say? If you mess with the bull, you get the horns, type of thing.
It's not a bad way to put it.
So, but in your case, it wasn't a good. Well, I wouldn't. Let me rephrase that. I wouldn't say it wasn't a not good outcome. And what you're saying is, if you look into God, right, or the one, or the parent, or the demiurge, or whatever it is to you, the programmer, or whatever, that you're gonna be altered 100% in some way. And what would you call it? The future perfect?
Yeah, the future perfect tense. It will change you.
Perfect tense.
It will change you forever, and it's not. The perfect part is it's not going back. Right? Like you can't be reinserted back into the matrix.
So it's like either you take the red pill or the blue pill. Yeah. You can take this one and wake back up in that eternal slumber, within that eternal slumber, or take this other one and it's like you're going to be with the big boys. And that's when he wakes up in the fucking factory. He's like, whoa, right. What? You know what I mean? That's wild, dude. So I love that. That's awesome. But in your case, when people are in religion and when they're in church, they want to further that relationship and nurture that relationship with God. In your case, it wasn't that. So wouldn't that kind of defeat the whole purpose of God? Or do you feel that he's there to help show you the way, not necessarily in the Christian religion, but in life, or, whatever religion it is? Because that's kind of, what I mean? It's paradoxical. It's like you're supposed to look for more of God, but then in your case, it kind of pushed you away because it unraveled that fabric of everything you thought to be, and it turned out not to be true.
And I think it stands a good chance to do that for anyone that digs. And I think, and a lot of people are going to stop once they realize they're going to stop pulling at the thread once they realize the sweater's going to unravel.
But that's bullshit, dude.
Well, I think it is. But that gets down to the kind of person that you are. Are you the kind of person that is using faith as a crutch, which I think more times than not it is.
That's what Carl Jung talks about, that religion, organized religion, is just a way of people's projections, their projections of their own problems, and just like you said, finding a crutch and a place to dump pretty much those.
Were you the kind of person that's doing that's just using it as a crutch just to answer things that, what happened to my favorite, grandma or parent or spouse or child that died? Where are they? Well, they're in heaven. What makes you feel good, right? There's nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with feeling good. Well, let me add a little asterisk to that. In my opinion, nothing wrong with that as long as you don't go around claiming that to be the absolute truth.
We're in some deep shit now, dude.
Yeah, if you believe something that whatever you want to believe in your head just because it makes you feel good, because it answers questions that are unanswerable and that causes you anxiety or stress, whatever, and you want to choose to believe something because it makes you feel better, awesome, great, fine. But the second you say, well, but what I believe is the truth, and you offer, right, and the burden of proof is on the person that makes the claim, right? So if you say X is, X is true, well, the burden of proof is on you to provide evidence for that.
Provide the.
And if you're unwilling or unable to do so, then Hitchens' razor says that which can be asserted without evidence can be dismissed without evidence.
Is that different from Occam's razor?
I forget what Occam's razor is off the top of my head.
It's like the more the choice that would make the most sense.
Yeah. That's right. Occam's razor basically is saying the simplest answer is normally the truth. Basically,
it's like, did I see Bigfoot or did I see a bear? You probably saw a fucking bear.
Right. So yeah, that's different than Occam's razor, because Hitchens' razor says if you say, hey Juan, did you know? Or if I say, hey Juan, do you know that I can fly? And you go, oh yeah, motherfucker, climb up to the roof and jump off and let's see. And I go, well, I don't have to because I told you that I could.
Yeah.
I have made and I have asserted something that I'm unwilling to prove. And because I'm unwilling to prove it, it is folly for you to engage in an argument on whether or not I can fly, because I've been unwilling to prove my claim. So that which can be asserted without evidence can be dismissed, and I would argue should be dismissed without evidence. You don't need to provide evidence of why I can't fly if I'm unwilling to prove that I can. Right?
Yeah.
So,
no, I got 100%. I'm with you on that. But there's like this delusional state when it comes to religion and any beliefs like that, right? Where again, these intrusive thoughts, these demons that get within people and they possess them, right, is what is happening. What we're seeing right now, like we are all, like I said earlier, our actions all come from thoughts, right? And there wouldn't be any actions without thoughts of either one of your thoughts or one of my thoughts, and we project those onto others, which is what happens we talked about hierarchy earlier. When the higher ups, which we're seeing it happen in history right now, when the higher ups come up with some sort of idea, they project that onto the masses, and that's when you get this mass hysteria, mass hypnosis.
Okay, yeah.
To control people through that. But it starts with the head, right? It starts up top, and then it works it. They indoctrinate the head figure, and then it works its fucking way down, and those people push those ideologies and whatever it is. And dude, Stalin, Hitler, fucking Fidel Castro, all these head figures, Kim Jong-un, all these head figures, it all starts with an idea.
So how is that significant for you? Like when because I sense I gather that that's something that's important to your worldview, that everything starts with a thought. So let me play a little devil's advocate. Number one, how is that important to your daily life? And secondly, if you found out that that in fact is not the case, how would that affect you?
It would affect me because at the end of the day, I feel that, and I don't want to say what's happening right now because I'm just tired of talking about it. But the way it's funny, I'm trying to talk without talking.
Sure.
At the end of the day, I've always said that we are thoughts fighting with one another. And let's go back to the simulation hypothesis, not theory. A theory can be proven scientifically. A hypothesis has not been proven scientifically for those fucking conspiracy theorists and shit. When you know you're part of a game, right?
Okay.
That's why these elites, they are the way they are, because they know this is a game. So when you know and you acknowledge that you're in some sort of game, it's okay. You know, yeah, okay, you have to abide. When you're using Windows 10, you can't use a Windows 2000 program, right? Because it's not programmed in Windows 10 to be able to do that. So there's certain things in this realm that we can't do.
Okay.
Now, when I say that we are thoughts, and this whole idea of thoughts is because some people, when they say you die by the sword or whatever, they don't understand and they can't grasp that concept. They can't break out of that matrix to be able to think for themselves because they are being influenced by others and their thoughts and their words and their actions, right? So not until the mass of people, of the population, whoever it is, has an awakening and says, hey, wait a minute, this is bullshit. Simulacra and simulation. We are giving power to these empty symbols, whether it be a thought or whatever else, a symbol, and it has power over us. That's why it's so important to me, because if we as a society came together and said, hey, this is all bullshit, what gives money the power that it does? What, the government? Who is the government? Oh, well,
right.
Just we all come together as a collective consciousness and agree upon this head figure of the so-called free world, and he is the president and he is the head figure. Well, says fucking who?
Right.
Well, says the system. What system? The system is flawed. But as long as there are the sheeple and the people who don't understand that they're having these thoughts projected onto them, and they don't know they're being manipulated. Right, that's why I say defund the media. Don't defund the police. Defund the fucking media,
dude.
Because it's called mimetic occultism, and mimetic occultism, back to Plato's The Republic. Mimetic occultism is propaganda used to talk to people's soul on a
Was
deeper
that in the
level.
Republic?
No. So I'm going to
that
relate to the Republic now. The reason I bring that up is because what did Plato want to do in the Republic? He wanted to take away the arts. He wanted to take away certain sounds and certain notes. Why? Because he understood that the arts talk to people on a deeper level. That's why they're prohibiting us from doing the things that we want to do, from going to the movies, from doing all this shit. You will stay inside and you will listen and you will do as you're fucking told.
Right.
Why? Because people will still do it time and time again, and not until they wake up from this eternal slumber will they know. That's why the guy in the Matrix eating the steak, he goes, I know this shit is fake, but I'd rather have this shit because it tastes good.
But
he knows it's fucking fake, but he knows he's in a game. He knows he's in a simulation.
Yep.
And there's nothing he can do about it. He said, hey, I don't want to remember shit when I wake up on the other side. When he snitches them out, he goes, I don't remember shit when I wake up on the other side. Just wipe me. I want to be super fucking rich. That's it. And that's what's happening in this reality right now.
What was that? I'm going to jot it down real fast so I can look that up. What was that occultism words you mentioned a second ago? I've never heard that before.
Mimetic occultism.
How do you spell
It's like meme,
Okay.
M-E-M-E, etic. So mimetic occultism. So it's propaganda that speaks to people on a deeper level. So it speaks to their soul. So that's what they're using now. They're using propaganda. That's why you have this worship of politicians. This back to normal. Oh yeah, shoot me up with anything, whatever it is. I've done, dude. I had somebody call me today, who is super fucking liberal, Didn't know who Anthony Fauci was.
What?
I was like, what? Yeah, that's what I fucking said. I was like, do you know who Anthony Fauci is? They were like, who's Anthony Fauci?
Whoa.
I'm like, these are the people that vote for the people in power. These are the people that are in society with us. They're asleep. They're asleep. They're fucking asleep at the same time while they're in society, bro. So when I talk about this shit, this is what I mean. When you know, because you're being indoctrinated through religion, through whatever the fuck it is. Whatever it is. That's why when I started looking into all this stuff, bro, since I started my podcast till now, my idea of the world, my idea of everything, of reality itself has changed. Why? Because I've opened myself up to other possibilities, things that you can't do in the church because you're ruled a heretic. That's why they fucking took out all the Gnostics. You know what I mean?
I agree totally, and I think that, let me put it a different way. One of the worst insults that I could be given would be to run into somebody that I knew 10 years ago, 5 years ago, a year ago, whatever. And we chat for 5-10 minutes and they go, motherfucker, you haven't changed a bit. That would be a terrible, I would take that as a personal failure on my part, because I am always seeking to grow and understand and evolve as a human. And whether that be learning more about the truth of reality, whether that be learning how to set healthier boundaries, learning how to create better habit patterns, whatever, right? I don't ever want to be the same person for a long period of time. I want to be growing and evolving, right? Movimiento es vida in Espanol, right? Movement is life. You want to be constantly moving and growing, and that's true in battle. It's true in life. It's true in theology. It's true, in my opinion, in you must move to live. And if you stay still, you're gonna die. Period.
What is it? Sharks drown, or sharks don't drown. They die if they don't keep moving.
I believe almost any fish does, unless air is filtering over their gills.
Yeah.
It's like they have their gills, and moving through the water filters the water through the gills and extracts the oxygen from the hydrogen. And I think some fish are able to stay relatively still, but I don't think many are able to stay still for very long.
That's wild, right? That your own world would kill you if you were to stay still within it. Which is, again, this fucking podcast has been amazing, bro. Like, this has been one of my favorite podcasts, because it literally, did not go fucking anywhere that I thought I was gonna go.
Oh, really?
When
4 episodes.
I literally had no clue where the fuck this was going, and it just went this crazy. But you know what I mean? It's you're asleep. Wake the fuck up. You know what I mean? And not until people wake up and set their intentions where they need to be, we will be in this. Those who don't understand history are doomed to repeat it.
Well, I agree totally, but back to what you just said, interesting statement. Where should you said you have to set your intentions where they need to be. So what is your opinion on where those intentions need to be?
You ain't doing this shit to me. No. Whatever it is that you feel they need to be.
Hey, just that's the way I listen to people. I'm
not projecting shit on anybody. I'm just saying, you do you find your truth. And whatever it is that you feel you have a calling towards, whatever that may be. Hey, let me set some boundaries, right? Don't be a fucking Aleister Crowley or any one of these other cucks. As long as you don't hurt anybody, right? My whole thing is, you can do whatever it is that you want to do in life. Dude. As long as you don't hurt children or hurt yourself or hurt any other person. You can do whatever it is that you want to do. And you can spread whatever message. Because you see that flag behind me? In 1776... It was all about freedom, baby. And they said, fuck the establishment.
Right.
We're going to become our own thing. And the rest is history. But then you get the corruption, such as the Knights Templar.
Yeah.
The Catholics.
Oh, God. We gotta have more conversations.
All these fucking guys, right? When you get a hierarchical system, you get the bad apples that spoil the rest. And again, the rest is literally history, but you know what I mean, bro. You know exactly what I'm talking about. But we're coming up on the hour. I don't like to push things past an hour because usually people's time span. But this has been fucking amazing, right? And I'll have you back on again because we literally just went, dude. I love theology. I love talking about the Bible. It's an interesting fucking book, and again, I use it even though I don't believe, right? I'm not a subscriber,
right,
to the system. You can still use these things as what was it? Shane Moore was on my podcast. He said we did an episode called "The Allegory of the Crucifixion" or the Crucifixion Allegory, something like that. And we went into that, how he breaks down that pretty much we are gods, right? The body, and he breaks down all the 33 vertebrae and Golgotha, right? The place of the skull, the crown, all this crazy shit.
No shit.
Yeah. So this guy, that guy goes deep, bro. That guy goes fucking deep. And so, yeah, dude, this is fucking great. I got some good clips that I'm gonna probably be putting out there, and we'll wrap it up there. And I'll have you back on again, 100%.
Yeah, and likewise, have you on mine as well.
Yeah, for sure. We can do a part 2 on your podcast so people can go check that shit out. And one more time for the people before we head on out of here, what is your social media that you want to share? Whatever is one more time so people can find your work.
Yeah, at Hey Jeffrey Davis everywhere personally, and at Functionally Dysfunctional Show for my podcast.
Awesome. And shoot me the links that you want me to put in the description.
Will
this
do.
will be out probably in a couple of weeks. So, dude.
Will do. Thanks for having me on, dude.
It was a pleasure, and I appreciate you coming on. We had set this up, a week ago, whatever, and to be honest, I had no fucking clue this was gonna go like this. So
right, those are the best conversations, right?
Yeah, that's why I like doing. As of lately, all my shows pretty much have been impromptu.
Nice.
But I feel that the conversations always had the same way with the state of the union, if you will, because of what's going on. And
we can go all day about that too.
Yeah, people have to realize that there's other things that we can dedicate our energies towards.
100%.
Because if we keep dedicating our energies towards one certain thing, it's never gonna fucking go away. So
I agree.
I appreciate you coming on my show, dude, and I had a great time, man.
Me too. Thank you.